Is the United States and China about to enter into war? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, yes or no. But before you answer, you might want to take a look at the latest headlines that have been coming out in the past week. And we're not just talking about a trade war. We're talking about all-out physical war and attacks. Let's take a look at what's coming out here. You can see China has now admitted to Volt Typhoon cyber attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure, according to reports. We are now hearing that they are attacking U.S. water, electrical grids, various transportation communications. Now, we've been hearing this for quite some time, and we have heard these warnings coming out, and we're going to take a stroll down memory lane as we've been hearing this from the FBI for quite some time. However, China is now coming out and outright confessing and admitting it. However, this is exactly what we had heard in the parting statement from the outgoing FBI Director Christopher Wray, as he called China and its cyber program the defining threat of our generation. And he is saying, and you're going to see this in a second, I'm going to play some video footage for you. We are hearing that the reason why China is outright blatantly saying that they are doing this and they're okay with it is because they have now positioned themselves in a place where they no longer fear the United States. They feel like they have strategically maneuvered their way where they are ready for war with the United States. Now, most might think that would be ridiculous. You don't want to go to the war with the U.S. However, they're saying that their cyber armies, their positioning, their strategy for the past 4 years and beyond, they have been planning for all-out war. And in addition to that, take a look at this. China coming out, you can see this coming out in the past 48 hours, is accusing the U.S. of launching advanced cyber attacks, names alleged NSA agents in these attacks. So they are coming out outright and also accusing the United States, saying, hey, this is just a tit for tat. We're going to be able to hit the United States back because they are hitting us. And so we are seeing things escalating. Now, I've been reporting to you for quite some time the warnings as, take a look, Taiwan sounds the alarm for a 2027 invasion. You can see this coming out March 19th, 2025, as they are warning that before the year 2027, which I know is a 2-year time frame, but they've been saying this for quite some time with their intel, that there is going to be a war. The Chinese are going to invade Taiwan. They are saying they want reunification with Taiwan. We actually saw this in their New Year statement from Xi Jinping, and Taiwan is saying they want no part of it, that this would be an invasion. And they know that the United States will come to the aid of Taiwan, and as a result, China, in anticipation of this, has been infiltrating critical U.S. infrastructure systems to shut down water, power grids, transportation, communication, you name it. And we're hearing that their cyber armies have infiltrated into the United States, and they are now confessing to this. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you the video footage so you can see it for yourself coming out on this. But in addition to that, what has been making headlines quite a bit lately, this week you can see Trump's trade war may trigger a global recession and undermine the U.S., experts say. Now, keep in mind that this is going to be coming out from the L.A. Times. Please spit up the meat, chew out the bones, as they are anti-Trump, so it's going to have its skews, as they're calling it Trump's trade war. But he is saying, I am just trying to make the playing field level. These are reciprocal tariffs. The U.S. has been getting ripped off for ages, and it is now time for us to put America first. And if you agree with Donald Trump and what he is doing, drop a 47 in the comments. Hit that like button. But if you disagree and you feel like there's going to be a lot of turmoil on the horizon as a result of what is going on, drop a 46 for the previous administration's approach. As they are saying now, the new Trump administration, everything Donald Trump is doing is really shaking things up. Let me know your thoughts, 47 or 46. And hit that like button. Now, in addition to that, we're going to be covering all the details as the Trump tariffs leave China's neighbors with an impossible choice. We're hearing that right now the pressure that Trump is applying, it is making them decide, are we going to be Team China or Team USA? Trade war shock hits U.S. companies. Going to be covering this in detail as we're hearing that various companies are being hit very hard. And like I said, I've got video footage. We're going to be diving into all the details. And let me know in the comments, yes or no. Is the United States going to be entering into a war with China here very soon? Even if it is Taiwan, we're hearing the United States will be involved right in the middle of this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, one of the greatest indicators of this over time has been watching gold and seeing what is happening with gold. And you can see that as gold rises, it is because investors are seeking it as a safe haven. You can see right here, take a look. 3,341 gold has hit a new all-time high. So if you're taking into consideration getting gold, I want to mention Lear Capital. Lear Capital, you can see on the screen, you can reach out to them at 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com if you want to get your hands on some gold during this time. If you think we're going to war, then you might want to take into consideration grabbing some gold, some silver. They've got a free booklet, a guide that can give you information if you've never done it before. And even if you don't invest with them, you can still call. They will help you out. Extremely helpful. They are the best. They have 27 years of experience. Again, you can get a free report. So even if you just want to look into it, because right now, as you can see, we're hitting all-time highs with gold. And if we're going to war, it's likely going to keep going up. Go ahead and give them a call at 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com. And that is my friends over at Lear Capital to help you out with investing in gold and silver. That's only if you think that we're going to be going to war here. But according to the headlines that we've been seeing, looks like in the next 2 years might not be a bad idea. And again, do whatever if you have a financial advisor, if you've got a strategic plan, that's great. But if you don't and you want a little bit of advice, just a little bit of direction, no pressure, no obligation, just free information, check out Lear Capital. But let's take a look at some video footage so that way you can see it for yourself as to what they're saying regarding attacks that are on the way. And before we dive in, like I said, do me a favor. If you appreciate the updates, please take a quick second. Hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. And all of these articles that are referencing what is happening right now, they're going to be linked down in the description below. William, good to see you on. I see he says, good evening, Steve and everyone. I'm seeing 47 still coming in. I'm seeing someone else saying gold. Someone else is saying crypto. Yeah, that is available to anybody who wants to see it. So, but with that being said, let's take a look at this video footage so that way you can see it for yourself.
It's because, we've known for decades that the Chinese have gone after our infrastructure and critical infrastructure with cyber. But the point is now the Chinese are actually admitting it to the United States. That's basically saying, you don't scare us anymore, U.S. U.S., you're not deterring us. And I think that betrays a different mentality in Beijing, a very arrogant one, a very belligerent one that really hates the U.S. So, anything can happen when they're not deterred.
Their cyber attacks can hurt us. Do we have the capacity to cyber attack them and hurt them?
Yeah, I think that we do. We're not
going to say anything about it, though, are we?
We're not going to say very much about it. We need to be better at cyber, though, because the Pentagon just is not as good as it needs to be on something like this.
That individual right there who had mentioned to us that right now they are in a position where they're no longer even afraid of us. They're letting us know, hey, we'll go ahead and move forward with these attacks. Now, these were the warnings that we had received before from the FBI Director Christopher Wray.
The CCP's
you can see it right
dangerous
here.
actions, China's multi-pronged assault on our national and economic security, make it the defining threat of our generation. Now, when I described the CCP as a threat to American safety a moment ago, I meant that quite literally. There has been far too little public focus on the fact that PRC hackers are targeting our critical infrastructure, our water treatment plants, our electrical grid, our oil and natural gas pipelines, our transportation systems, and the risk that poses to every American requires our attention now. China's hackers are positioning on American infrastructure in preparation to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to American citizens and communities if and when China decides the time has come to strike. They're not focused just on political and military targets. We can see from where they position themselves across civilian infrastructure that low blows aren't just a possibility in the event of a conflict. Low blows against civilians are part of China's plan. But But the PRC's cyber onslaught goes way beyond pre-positioning for future conflict. Today, and literally every day, they're actively attacking our economic security, engaging in wholesale theft of our innovation and our personal and corporate data. Nor is cyber the only PRC threat we face. The PRC cyber threat is made vastly more dangerous by the way they knit cyber into a whole-of-government campaign against us. They recruit human sources to target our businesses, using insiders to steal the same kinds of innovation and data that their hackers are targeting, while also engaging in corporate deception, hiding Beijing's hand in transactions, joint ventures, and investments to do the same. And they don't just hit our security and economy, they target our freedoms, reaching inside our borders across America to silence, coerce, and threaten some of our citizens and residents. But I can assure you, the FBI is laser-focused on the threat posed by Beijing. We've got cyber, counterintelligence, criminal, and WMD experts, just to name a few, defending against it. And we're working in partnership with the private sector, partnership with our allies abroad, and partnership at all levels of the U.S. government, especially the NSA, Cyber Command, CISA, and ONCD, whose leaders I'm honored to be here with today. In fact, just this morning, we announced an operation where we and our partners identified hundreds of routers that had been taken over by the PRC state-sponsored hacking group known as Volt Typhoon. The Volt Typhoon malware enabled China to hide, among other things, pre-operational reconnaissance and network exploitation against critical infrastructure like our communications, energy, transportation, and water sectors, steps China was taking, in other words, to find and prepare to destroy or degrade the civilian critical infrastructure that keeps us safe and prosperous. And let's be clear, cyber threats to our critical infrastructure represent real-world threats to our physical safety. So, working with our partners, the FBI ran a court-authorized on-network operation to shut down Volt Typhoon and the access it enabled. Now, this operation was an important step, but there's a whole lot more to do, and we need your help to do it. To quantify what we're up against, the PRC has a bigger hacking program than that of every major nation combined. In fact, if you took every single one of the FBI's cyber agents and intelligence analysts and focused them exclusively on the China threat, China's hackers would still outnumber FBI cyber personnel by at least 50 to 1. So as we sit here, while important budget discussions are underway, I will note that this is a time to be keeping ahead of the threat by investing in our capabilities rather than cutting them. We need to ensure that we sustain and build on the gains that we've made that have enabled us to take actions like the Volt Typhoon operation I just mentioned.
So there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Now, that was about a year ago. That was January 31st of 2024, and now today we are still seeing these coming up with Volt Typhoon and the attacks now being admitted by the CCP. As take a look, China admitted Volt Typhoon cyber attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure report. In a secret meeting between the Chinese and the U.S. officials, the former confirmed conducting cyber attacks on U.S. infrastructure. You can see this is dated April 11th, 2025. So the video footage that you saw was the warnings that came out from FBI Director Wray. In fact, when he left office as the FBI director, you can see his final warning was that China and its cyber program is the defining threat of our generation. January 13th, 2025, as he was leaving office. And now we're hearing that China is outright confessing this. And let me know your thoughts Are we about to enter into war? And right now, we've got the trade war we're going to be talking about here in just a second. In a secret meeting that took place late last year between China and American officials, the former confirmed that China had conducted cyber attacks against U.S. infrastructure as a part of a campaign known as Volt Typhoon, according to the Wall Street Journal. And I've let you know here on the channel when these attacks hit. They have hit water, they have compromised power grids. We're hearing various hospital groups, communications, transportation systems. A lot of people speculating some of the things that we're seeing with airplanes could be from that. We've seen various phone companies go down, and a lot of people saying these are cyber attacks. Now, a lot of people coming out and saying, no, they're not. They're technical issues and errors. But a lot of individuals are also saying, even if this was a cyber attack, some of these companies would not confess to it. They wouldn't admit that they were hacked or attacked. So it's really hard to say. Now, the meeting took place at a Geneva summit in December and involved members of the outgoing Biden administration. So this was about 3-4 months ago. The U.S. officials who were present were startled by China's admission. People familiar with the matter told the Wall Street Journal. So they have now outright confessed yet again. We are hearing that they are doing this. Now, there was a little bit of back and forth for a while. We had heard they had come out and said, yes, we have compromised these. Now it's just outright, yes, we are in charge of these cyber attacks as well. The remarks made at the meeting by Chinese officials were indirect and somewhat ambiguous, but the American delegation interpreted that the attacks tracked as Volt Typhoon were conducted in response to the U.S. supporting Taiwan. And they are saying that there will be an invasion by 2027 and that there will be a war. The conclusion of American officials after the meeting was that the cyber attacks were meant to scare the United States from getting involved in a potential conflict between China and Taiwan. So right now they're saying that they are doing this. China is playing chess, anticipating the U.S. will come to the aid of Taiwan when they invade, and they are saying, don't get involved, because if you do, we will shut off your water, your power grids, transportation, communications, all of your critical infrastructure. We will wreak havoc on the people of the United States in their nation. The Volt Typhoon attacks, which were attributed to China immediately after their discovery, involved the use of zero-day vulnerabilities and other sophisticated techniques. The attacks were aimed at critical infrastructure and raised concern that they could enable China to spy on U.S. and cause significant disruptions. The Volt Typhoon threat actors managed to gain access to systems in a wide range of sectors, including communications, manufacturing, utility, construction, government, IT, maritime, transportation, and energy. It came to light recently that the hackers managed to dwell in the U.S. electric grid for 300 days in 2023, almost the entire year. They had infiltrated and been inside of the electrical grid systems. Had the capability of shutting it down if they wanted, but no, they're holding that in their back pocket, ready for when it is going to be the most opportune time. And they're saying that is when it is time to attack Taiwan. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Salt Typhoon attacks aimed at several major American telecom firms, which had come to light in the months leading up to the December meeting in Geneva, were also mentioned during the meeting, but the focus was not on the Volt Typhoon attacks. Salt Typhoon campaigns resulted in phone calls and text messages of senior officials getting compromised. Unlike Volt Typhoon attacks, which the U.S. sees as an unacceptable provocation, Salt Typhoon campaign is similar to cyber espionage that the U.S. itself conducts against its adversaries. In recent years, both the U.S. and China have stepped up their game in publicly accusing each other of conducting cyber attacks. So there you have it, that China admitting, confessing to this, and we're hearing these were the warnings FBI Director Wray had given before leaving office, and now China in return, just in the past 48 hours, is accusing the United States of launching advanced cyber attacks, and they have names of alleged NSA agents that were involved. Let's go ahead and take a look at this as well. China accuses the United States National Security Agency on Tuesday of launching advanced cyber attacks during the Asian Winter Games in February, targeting essential industries. Police in the northeastern city of Harbin said 3 alleged NSA agents to a wanted list and also accused the University of California and Virginia Tech of being involved in the attacks after carrying out investigations, according to a report by state news agencies on Tuesday. So there you have it, you guys. They are accusing the United States back. And again, this is all surrounding, you can see this came out last month, Taiwan. The United States and Taiwan's alliance, and China saying Taiwan is a part of China. They do not recognize Taiwan as an independent state. They are saying that they are a part of China, and they will reunite them here by force if necessary, but they will be one yet again. Now, this comes as we are seeing the trade wars launching right now between the United States and China. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest, as right now we're hearing that Trump and China, they are battling it out, and other nations are trying to decide what they're going to be doing here in regards to the relationships with China and the U.S. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now, these videos coming out just in the past couple of hours today. Looks like one coming out 10 hours ago, one coming out 13 hours ago, giving us updates as of today, April 17th, 2025, as to what is unfolding, because not only physical war, cyber attacks, potential things being shut down, but in addition to that, rocking the economy. Let's go ahead and take a look.
With God's grace over these past 3 months, and we have had a great 3 months. They say maybe the best 3 months ever for a president. And I think there's a whole new spirit in our country.
So there's the president making the case about America having momentum. He says world leaders are lining up to negotiate new trade deals, and another major partner is coming to the table. In fact, today, and another one tomorrow, and on we go. It's Thursday. Good morning, everybody. Live in New York, I'm Bill Hemmer. How we feeling over there?
Good. How are you?
Excellent.
Great. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. On this Thursday, President Trump is set to meet with one of our top European allies, the Prime Minister of Italy. So the two are expected to talk trade. This after yesterday's talks with the Japanese delegation. The president touting big progress out of that one.
So meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal is shedding light on the administration's strategy. It says the White House is using the talks to further isolate China, asking a lot of their trading partners to limit the dealings that they may have in the future in exchange for relief on tariffs and a good deal with the U.S.
And House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain, she's on deck. But first, let's get to Alexandria Hobbs. She's live at the White House. Hi, Alex. Good morning.
Hi, good to be with you. You know, from the European Union's perspective, Prime Minister Meloni is the bridge that they need. You've heard the term Trump whisper being tossed around there. But the fact of the matter is Meloni and President Trump have a good relationship. Compliments have been shared. She actually even attended the president's inauguration. So the EU hopes that today's meeting will help sell the president on a zero-for-zero tariff deal that the EU has been seeking. Meloni, of course, is going to also want to preserve her own good standing. This morning, President Trump highlighted today's meeting and talks with other countries who have been driven to the table. He posted this morning, had a very productive call with the president of Mexico yesterday. Likewise, they met with the highest level Japanese trade representatives. It was a very productive meeting. Every nation, including China, wants to meet today, Italy. Now, there was some surprise that the president was directly involved with the Japanese delegation who was in Washington yesterday, because those talks were seen as preliminary. But the White House says it was important to the president. On China, the White House reiterated this.
The ball is in China's court. They need to do business with the United States. They need the best thing on the face of the planet, and that is the American consumer.
Well, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is concerned about dampened consumer spending and said tariff increases went beyond what banks were anticipating.
The effects of that are likely to move us away from our goals. So unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way.
Now, President Trump believes that interest rates should be cut. Now, the Federal Reserve Chair, he says that he wants some clarity on tariffs first, but how much time he has to wait is really put in question this morning, as the president posted Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Dana.
All right, Alex, thank you so much. Looking beautiful there in the White House sunshine. Thank you.
So let's bring in Michigan Congresswoman Lisa McClain, House Republican Conference Chair, and good morning to you. Let's get right into it. Here's Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, talking about those who go to the front of the line will get a better deal. Watch here.
I think there will be advantage to our allies especially, in a first mover advantage. Usually the first person who makes the deal gets the best deal. So
who do you think will be first?
It's their choice.
Japan, you got Italy today and South Korea tomorrow. Here's the issue about this whole idea about isolating China. There was a loophole from the trade deal USMCA in 2018, and the loophole was it allowed China to move factories into Mexico and then sell the products the Chinese made in those factories to the American consumer. And right now, this administration's they're trying to prevent that. Do you have an inclination that whether it's Japan or China or Italy or Germany, anyone else down the line, that they're willing to play ball with the U.S. on that deal and close forever
My
that loophole?
inclination is yes, and I think you've already seen actions towards that. President Trump, what he's trying to do, and we've talked about this over and over again, is trying to level the playing field honestly and move in the right direction, trying to close the loophole. Look, he's trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States and back to, most importantly, our allies, not our adversaries like China. And he's talking about it, but more importantly, people and countries are acting upon it. And that's the positive that you're seeing. And if I can just say one more thing is, look at the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan is number 3 behind California and New York for manufacturing jobs lost. That's horrible for our state. That's horrible for our constituents. President Trump is fixing that. He wants to bring jobs back to the United States. And more importantly, for me, he wants to bring jobs back to Michigan. So we're actually excited and giving him some grace and patience on this.
The Chinese are not waiting around. They are also on a, I don't know if I'd call it a charm offensive, but they're going around, especially to Southeast Asia, saying, don't you want to cut a deal with us? They spoke to the Europeans yesterday, and they have cheaper goods to sell, right? We might have a better message. We might have a better deal for them, and Besson is saying, get to the table first. But yesterday, the Fed chairman warned this, that the impact of the tariffs will include higher inflation and slower growth. The president really didn't like that message from him and might not even want Jerome Powell to be around. Do you take the warning seriously from the Fed chair, or do you think he should go because he's not correct?
Listen, I have the full faith in President Trump, and the Fed chair can do what the Fed chair can do. And, you know, that is one potential outcome. But the other potential outcome that we're already see working is we see people already coming to the table. We see countries coming to the table. Look at what Japan is doing. Look at all the investments that are coming back into America. $5 trillion. And those investments means jobs, right? So there is going to be some short-term discomfort. There's no question about that as we resettle and get the playing field level. But it's kind of like working out. You're going to have some short-term discomfort for long-term health. We have to do things differently because we are tired of America being taken advantage of. And I have full faith in President Trump that he'll do that.
Sounds like we had to hydrate. That's what I take from that answer. On the tax cuts and this budget reconciliation idea, it's a stunning thing to hear Republicans even considering the possibility of raising taxes. From North Dakota, here is Senator Kevin Cramer, Republican. Here's what he said. He said, it's just so fun to be a Republican these days, just to watch the transformation where suddenly people are going. When you think about it, why do we worry so much about that? So whether it's allowing them to go up a little bit or even lowering some of the other stuff more, there's a populism growing in the party, even among those of us with powdered wigs.
So there you have it, you guys, and let me know your thoughts. There at the end, you heard them talk about they're starting to get into the reconciliation bill, and as you'll recall, that is Trump's agenda items, and that is one of the things where he's saying no more taxes for Social Security, no more taxes on tips, no more taxes on overtime. Also looking potentially getting a Doge dividend refund check in there where 20% of all clawbacks from Doge go out to the American people. And so they are working on that as well. And you also heard him say they're planning on taxing the rich. Donald Trump coming out and saying, I think it's like if you make $750,000 more a year or $1 million or more a year, that you're going to get your taxes increased to help pay. So that way we can go ahead and make no taxes for the middle and lower class possible. Do you like the sound of that? If so, drop a 47 in the comments. Let me know your thoughts as he is addressing the economy. Now, how does that tie into what's going on with China? Well, because of the trade wars. And as you guys know, he is saying that the tariffs, all the way that the United States has been getting taken advantage of all this time, he said it's going to stop. And as a result, you're going to see tons of funds pouring in. And if they don't, then you're going to see tons of jobs coming back to the United States, manufacturing coming here, being made in America. So this is going to be the motivation to get people back over, is that the tariffs are going to get so aggressive. Either that or these countries, in order to avoid tariffs, are going to have to cut deals. And as we saw, there are various nations coming to the negotiating table right now. And if you like the sound of that, drop a 47 and hit that like button. Now let's take a look at some more video footage that has been coming out here. As you can see here, we've got an expert, Mr. Gordon Chang, who is the one that warned us about the cyber attacks and how China is outright blatantly saying they're not afraid of the United States. And he is saying what is happening right now with the trade wars. China, he says, has not thought through this all the way. This is not good for China. He said what Trump is doing, he is a master of the art of the deal. He is positioning us very well. Let's go ahead and take a look.
China is seeking support from other countries to unite against President Trump over his crushing tariff plan. But Beijing met with wariness after years of, quote, coercive economic behavior. That's according to the New York Times. This is the Trump administration says it's negotiating with more than 70 countries as they push for them to limit dealings with China in exchange for tariff reductions. China reportedly open to talks with the U.S., but with many reported stipulations, including the U.S., quote, showing respect and naming a point person to lead negotiations. Let's bring in Gatestone Institute senior fellow and author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good morning. And I also want to say you have a brand new op-ed on FoxNews.com that just was published within the last hour. You say China's in bad shape and in no condition to sustain this trade war. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, well, they reported 5.4% growth from Q1, but that is ludicrous because we're seeing the price data for March showed China's in a deflationary spiral. You know, CPI down 2 straight months, PPI, factory gate prices, down 30 straight months. That is inconsistent with the notion of a robust economy. Plus, also, they got their debt crisis. Their 2008 in slow motion is occurring now. You got the collapse in the property prices that have already occurred. And the other thing is that Xi Jinping has turned his back on consumption as the basis of the Chinese economy. So his only way out is to export more. President Trump has just closed off the world's biggest consumer market by far. I mean, I don't know what Xi Jinping's going to do because Chinese factories have been closing now, and this is just a crisis for him.
Well, give me the investor perspective on that, Mark, of what he's saying.
All right, so I'm going to get very specific here. So we looked at NVIDIA and AMD yesterday, down 7-ish%. Obviously, the administration barred sale of some of the AI chips that they make to China. What I'm reading now is that Jensen Huang, NVIDIA's CEO, just arrived in Beijing, not wearing his typical motorcycle black leather jacket, but instead wearing a suit and tie. Remember, China mentioned that they want respect when it comes to trade. Is there anything we should be reading into that kind of a meeting?
Well, of course, you know, NVIDIA wants to sell more chips to China, and it's allowed a lot of its chips to be sold through China through transshipment through Singapore and other places, which it knew what was going on. You know, shame on them. But the point here is that once the U.S. starts really restricting chip flows to China, China's AI dreams have really run into a lot of turbulence then. And because everyone says that the struggle for the 21st century is AI, China's in trouble there as well.
You know, the New York Times has an op-ed this morning. It's not hard to imagine a Chinese-led global economy. But what you're saying, and Mark's point, flies in the face of what the New York Times is writing.
Yeah, and it flies in the face of the New York Times reporting. You know, it's just common sense that, you know, we have problems with China on trade because of their predatory and criminal trade practices. Well, of course, other countries also have those same problems, even worse than we do. So, you know, China's not going to be able to stitch up this global coalition that everyone's talking about against the U.S. to reorder the trade order. It's not going to happen. If anybody is going to reorder global trade, it's President Trump with all of these deals that he is now stitching together. And that's going to isolate China because remember, Trump said, those countries that deal with us first get the best deals. China is at the end of the tail because they are intransigent.
And Japan. Who was in D.C.? Japan. President Trump is ordering the Commerce Department to launch an investigation into possible tariffs on all U.S. critical mineral imports. This is after China curbed exports of rare earth minerals, which we need for U.S. defense. Xi Jinping's family reportedly holds billion-dollar investments in Chinese rare earth mining plants. And Bloomberg says, they actually said back in 2012, they had an 18% indirect stake in one company, $2 billion in assets, Gordon.
Yes.
Connect the dots with that, if you don't know.
Well, this is the whole issue of corruption. And, you know, the Communist Party likes to say, well, yeah, they're minor officials who are corrupt. But here you're talking at the top of the political system, Cheryl, and it just shows how bad this is. Now, of course, with this export ban or this embargo, you know, we're sort of getting, we're starting to get weak in the knees. But we got to remember, China did this to Japan in 2010. And the Chinese embargo collapsed in a couple months because the Japanese found so many ways around it. And we forget one thing. Yes, we need to buy, but the Chinese need to sell. And we're going to get these rare earths one way or the other. We might pay a little bit more, but then again, we might start mining and processing them here, and that's going to be good for the United States.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, when he was on this program with Maria, said exactly that. He said they need us a lot more than we need them, and I'm paraphrasing that. But you know, the other thing is what China just did is with Boeing, and that hurt Boeing's stock because they're telling all these Chinese carriers, don't take delivery of your Boeing orders. That hurts Boeing because they don't get paid until the aircraft is actually delivered.
Right. Boeing will have a little bit of turbulence, but remember, Boeing is going to sell these planes. If China doesn't buy them, they're going to sell them to India, which is actually talking to Boeing about taking these extra planes. There's only so much capacity in the world to build planes. If Airbus sells more to China, and that's a big if, but if they do, Boeing's going to sell to Airbus's customers because Airbus's customers are not going to wait 10 years to get a plane. So this is not going to really hurt Boeing too much in the long run. And if President Trump, if he starts putting an embargo on the sales of parts to China, because that is the natural step, then, you know, you're going to have a lot of planes in China are not going to be flying pretty soon. So, you know, this is not very good for China because they haven't thought this out.
Yeah, Airbus does have more of a hold on the Chinese market than Boeing does. And I know Boeing was looking for the opportunity, but well, here we are. Meg.
And Gordon, I have to go back to what you start your op-ed with. There are no winners and losers in trade wars, but you're calling China to be a loser today. I want to go to national security implications. We're talking about rare earth minerals. Where can the United States go? Because I think people need to understand what the national security is at stake when we rely on China, and then the United States has options. Can you kind of walk through that?
Yeah, well, we only have one rare earth mine. It's in California. But that production is processed in China. So what we can do, two things. First of all, open up federal lands for mining of rare earths and processing in the United States. Also, Saskatchewan, in our 51st state, you know, they've got minerals up the gazoo. So clearly, there's a lot that we can do here. And so there's just a very simple answer. We just do what the Japanese did in 2010. You know, you start to buy elsewhere. You buy from the Chinese directly because the state enterprises need to sell, and they'll do it surreptitiously. Also, you just find substitutes for rare earths, which the Japanese did.
And
there you have it, you guys. So, man, they are saying that it is going down right now with the trade wars. And also, in addition to that, for those of you hopping on a little bit late, as I mentioned in the headlines and in the thumbnail, China has now admitted to Volt Typhoon cyber attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure. You can see this coming out April 11th, 2025. Now, this was the warning of the outgoing FBI Director Christopher Wray. China is also accusing the United States in the last 48 hours of launching their own advanced cyber attacks, and they are naming the alleged NSA agents involved. And we're hearing that war between the United States, China, Taiwan will be taking place before the year 2027, as China was planning to invade Taiwan. And right now, as I mentioned, the trade wars are taking place, and you heard them talking about all the things that would be impacted as it is hitting, and various nations are having to decide between the U.S. and China. And also, if you haven't seen pinned in the comments, gold is at an all-time high. It is skyrocketing. You can see it's at $3,341.30. And if you want to take advantage of that right now, today, in the description down below and pinned in the comments, Lear Capital. Call 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com. And last time I had the CEO of Lear Capital, Kevin Demerit, on here, and he actually offered a bonus of $500 if you called him up, discussed it with them, wanted to do it, open an account with them, that they would add a credit of $500 towards getting gold or silver. So right now, might not be a bad time to do so if you are interested. So that was a very generous offer by the CEO of Lear Capital, who I had on discussing the conflicts taking place in the world. If you're interested, pin down below. Why not give it a shot? It's totally free. You can get some reports, information, and also potentially $500 in the account if they're still honoring that. That was just a week ago, so I believe they're still doing that. And you can also get, with qualifying purchases, major bonuses as well. So check it out if you're interested. And that is available to everybody that is, they said, mention that you saw it from the Steve Ram channel. Use the links, use the phone number. Wanted to make that available to you. But you guys, that is the latest that is going on. There is a lot taking place. I will continue to keep you up to speed on everything as it unfolds, because we are seeing Social Security coming to the forefront, potential Doge dividend refund checks being proposed in the reconciliation bill that's going through Congress right now, and we've got trade wars with China and critical infrastructures that are being threatened by cyber attacks, and China coming out and admitting, yes, it's us. We're not afraid of the United States. We're ready for war. And I see in the comments a lot of people saying that it's a mistake by China. And as you saw in the video footage, experts saying that as well. China doesn't know what they're getting into. If you agree, drop a 47 or drop a US in the comments. Hit that like button. Subscribe to stay up to date. And as always, all the articles, all the videos that I'm referencing, all of this is linked in the description. I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it, so that way you can see it for yourself and know and rest assured that this is the latest. So that's the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll keep you up to speed, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.